I'll have Leah call the roll. Yeah, they're okay. Red means muted. Am I on, Jessica?
But I don't know.
No, you got mute push.
Yeah. There. I think that's much better, right?
Now you're on.
Can you
Okay.
hear me? Okay.
Okay.
All right. Bailey,
Here.
Coiner,
Here.
Duffy,
Here.
Lemec, absent. McBride,
Here.
Peterson,
Here.
Schertz,
Here.
Schlew, absent. Spratt, here. Thomas,
Here.
Trees.
Here.
We have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Has anybody had a moment to look at last month's minutes? Are there any additions or corrections you noticed? Seeing none, do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
I make a motion.
Jerry
second
made a
it.
motion to move,
Second.
seconded by Michael. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motions are, or minutes are approved. Public comment, looks like everybody out there is a city employee. So I guess we'll skip that part. Under old business, there's none that I can think of at this time. It looks like Chad doesn't have any old business for us. Anything else I'm missing? I don't see any microphones lit up, so we'll move on to new business. And first up will be Sherry Fisher, who is going to introduce herself.
I'll actually introduce
Oh,
Sherry
you'll
real
introduce
quickly,
her.
but just so you guys know, this is something we're going to do just to let you guys get to know our staff a little bit better. We intend to, on a monthly basis, have a team member come and just do a little brief introduction of themselves and what they do for the department and the city. So first up is Sherry Fisher, who is in charge of our adaptive and inclusive programs. She also oversees the Roosevelt Community Center, and she was integral in the development of the Miracle Field. So Sherry's here, and we'll go from there.
Hi, good afternoon. Like Chad said, I'm Sherry Fisher. I have been with the city of Davenport, like, I feel my whole life. So I started as a lifeguard in '94, working for Betsy, and then I came back in 1999. So I've been here since that. In this role, it's kind of changed throughout, but always working with people with disabilities is my main core. Some of the other responsibilities I have are working for the summer. I do the summer day camps for the city. Our summer day camps are pay summer day camps. We also ran a summer day camp that we took some license funding for, but the school district does a really good job with that, so we just work with them, and they're the license day camp in the summer, and we run a for pay program. I also, like Chad said, do the Roosevelt Community Center, so all of the programs that happen inside the Roosevelt Community Center, which are just general recreation programs. We have some sports programs, weight room. We have some private renters that are on the second floor, so managing that, collecting their rent, as well as maintaining and just making sure the building's open, and then our indoor sandbox. And then I have an AmeriCorps staff and a couple other part-time staff and instructors. The Miracle Field was like the biggest accomplishment recently for what we've done, as well as getting our licensed site at Roosevelt. And then just assisting people in recreating in anything that they want to, so making any kind of adaptation that we need for any of the programs that people want to program in. We do have some programs that are specifically designed for people with disabilities, but then we also have inclusive programs so anyone can participate in anything. So I have a large role in helping to adapt those programs. They said to talk about what that I will be working on. I'm excited about the Roosevelt improvements. We have a capital improvement for new windows, so we're actually meeting on that tomorrow. And then as well as the park development funds that we received to improve kind of the look of Roosevelt, clean it up, make it more welcoming. And then the Miracle Field, getting all of those programs set now that it's open, and we'll get to operate for a full season, hopefully, if Mother Nature cooperates this year. And then we have Gabe's Playground that will be coming this year as well, and they have some programming that goes with that. So I'm excited to get that going. And then recently we've started working more. We've always done part of Special Olympics, just the unified programs, which is combining people with and without disabilities. But now we're branching off and becoming more involved in the specific Special Olympic programming and using the Miracle Field for some of our practices and figuring out what that looks like. That's me. Questions?
I'm sorry. Any questions for Sherry? Jerry?
I don't know if this pertains to the city of Davenport, but do we have anything to do with the Davenport Development Center?
The handicap.
The Handicap Development Center?
Most of those participants for Special Olympics, we are the coach for all of Handicap Development Center, and a lot of the programs that I run, they are participants of. So I work closely with them.
Well, there's getting a lot of changes there going on, and I was concerned about that, and I wasn't sure whether we could have anything to do with that. I mean, they're starting to lose places where they can work.
Yeah, funding.
It's not a
in the
good
state
thing.
It's not a great thing.
No, it's not. And
Yeah,
I just
we
wonder.
talked about in the past, like using Roosevelt for like a Dayhab center and trying to figure out, because with Dayhab funds, you have to spend 90% of your day out in the public. So we're like, well, Roosevelt is already a public center, so then running programs and activities that they can do by coming there then meets that qualification. So that is something that we are looking at. It's just the paperwork and what that looks like, and so no, yeah, I work really closely with them.
Okay. Well, I was just concerned about that. My grandson's uncle is one of these handicapped people over there.
Oh, great.
And I hear about all of that, and when I heard that they're going to start cutting back and do all these things, I mean, these kids or young people that are there they don't get paid a lot, but their paychecks, even if they don't get one, that's devastating to those people
Yes,
in
they
that
definitely
situation.
look towards that. I know
And-
we plan a program on Fridays, and no, Fridays is they go to the bank with their check, and that is all that you can do. You can go to the bank and you can go out to eat. Don't plan anything else on Friday nights.
Well, I know it's a big concern, and I was hoping that maybe something the city could do, and I don't know what connections they had, and that's the reason I asked that question. So I thank you.
Oh, thank you, yes.
Adriana?
Are there any kind of all-inclusive jobs, maybe that kind of can bridge that gap of what Jerry's talking about, kind of like handicap accessible jobs, or
We've worked with Goodwill. Like Goodwill is a job placement site, so a lot of them receive services through like Goodwill or Handicap Development Center, or like they have the senior program. It used to be RSVP. I'm not sure what it is. And Bettendorf High School has a really cool program where they train their students for job type skills. So we've worked with a lot of them where the people basically they're volunteers for the city, and then they get school credit or the agency pays them. So we have done some of those things, but anyone is welcome to apply for any job within the city. And then the city's really good at accommodations. So, but no, that's.
Any other questions for Sherry? Seeing none, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's a fun one. Every day's different.
Next, we'll move on to CIP budget, or CIP programs, I guess.
So we don't get to talk about this often enough with this group. So what I wanted to do is just do sort of an operating CIP sort of budget review. It's a question I've been getting and when we've been onboarding some of our new commission members, and it's not something we really get into the weeds on with Park Advisory a lot, but just to give you sort of an understanding of how our operating budget works and how our CIP planning works within the city. This time of the year, we start the process in September and it goes all the way till March, where we're doing budget for the next fiscal year. So as staff, we're knee deep in it right now. So I felt it'd be a good time in December sort of just to share this with you guys, answer any questions you may have. It's a general overview. It doesn't get real deep into the weeds, but and this will be available after the meeting with minutes. So if you can't see, I know some of it's really small, but the first slide here, the general center, all those numbers that are really sort of blurry, that comes straight out of the city's budget book. So that's available online now. It's a 568-page document that you guys can read at your leisure, and all the council, I'm sure they do, read it front to back and over again. But some of the key highlights in our operating budget for FY20, this current fiscal year we're in, our operating budget looks at about $7.5 million. So that's the department budget. The total FTEs within the department is 135. So when we say FTE, full-time equivalents, that's not full-time employees. That's full-time equivalents. That includes our part-time positions that are budgeted for as well, equaling up to full-time equivalents. From FY19 to FY20, we saw about a 2.8% increase. So the typical trend in operating budget for the past couple of years, we generally see about a 2 to 3% increase, and that's generally cost of living increase, right? So that covers the increase to wages and benefits with all our employees in general. So no real new money for operating. So this is when we take on new parks like Jersey Farms Park, for example, when that's developed and added to our system, that's going to require additional maintenance and burden on our staff and our team. We haven't seen, when we get to that point, we understand what the operating impact. We'll certainly request that and see if we can get additional funding to help cover that park. But the general trend has been just sort of that cost of living, that 3% increase annually. The FY21 budget is what we're working on now. Right now, it's proposed to be around $8.1 million. And let me back up for a second. When we talk about the difference between operating and CIP, just so you understand, our operating is our day-to-day work, right? So this covers all our time with our full-time, our part-time staff, our supplies, our equipment, all that sort of stuff goes into that. CIP is capital improvement. That's what we talk about, park development and bigger projects, different funding mechanisms with that as well. The majority of the operating budget is funded out of the general fund, the city's general fund for parks and recreation. And the chart goes into a little bit deeper weeds on, different funds, different services, that type of stuff. So operating budget by area. So when we look at the department, we're really devised 4 divisions. We have our administration, 7.25 FTEs with about a $835,000 operating budget. So that admin composes of myself, Jessica, and our communications supervisor. So the administration of the department, as well as our frontline clerks at River's Edge, our customer service team come out of that as well. Park operations, that is our maintenance side of things. That's led by Betsy. Ops has about 44 FTEs. However, if you look at the org chart there, roughly 7 full-time employees. Betsy is the senior manager. We have 2 park managers and then 4 horticultural staff members out at Vanderveer that are the full-time team members. Everybody else is seasonal and part-time within the ops. Operation budget annually is around 2.36 million. Rivers Edge and Golf make up the other division, or what's considered revenue facilities, and our Troy Evans, who you'll always see here, oversees that. Now, the one thing to remember about the revenues, that operates a little bit differently. That is a self-sustaining enterprise fund, so Golf and Rivers Edge are budgeted and designed to cover their expenditures through revenues. They are subsidized periodically if we fall short with general fund dollars, but generally we try to plan and operate those to cover their costs. So under Golf, we have about 22.25 FTEs with a $1.8 million budget. And then Rivers Edge is 10.5 FTEs with $820,000 budget. And then our last division, and sort of in the middle of the org chart, is our recreation division. And Teresa is our senior manager, of course, who oversees recreation, as well as our program staff. Make up the majority of that, as well as the AmeriCorps and the Stepping Stones program within recreation. Recreation, 51 FTEs and $2.1 million budget annually. Just a breakdown of sort of different funding sources that the department utilizes. Again, the bulk of our funding comes through the general fund, the city's general fund. Trust and agency is another fund. That is the city's fund that covers employee benefits. Golf Fund and Rivers Edge are the two enterprise funds that I mentioned, and then we get some money through local option sales tax, and that's sort of some capital outlay money that comes through the department. It's a small chunk, only about $200,000 annually out of local option sales tax. And then lastly, youth sports is a separate fund. When we took over Dad's Club, it was established that way. It's supposed to be self-sustaining as well, and does for the most part. Just a snapshot in general. This was out of the budget book as well, just so you understand a little bit of the city's financing. So general fund and trust and agency in FY20, 37% respectively of that budget went to police and fire. All other departments, 26%. So big priority in the community is public safety, and has been for quite a while. This year, you'll see through the budget process, a lot of infrastructure needs are being prioritized, city streets, and further on, I'll talk a little bit. 2018, we did a citizen survey through the community, and a lot of this stuff is guided by responses we got through that. But just sort of a comparison, so you see how we rank, or how city sort of is prioritizing things. This is part of the citizen survey, and I'm terribly sorry that our technology is not good for you guys to read, but basically this is rated all the major categories or city services, right? So if I can get my pointer to work. Parks and Recreation is, I can't even read it, right here. So it's this fourth column. So general satisfaction, or very good rating, 25%. Good rating, 53. Fair, 19. And we got a little bit of a couple people who think we do a poor job. But overall, pretty good when we compare to the other city services. We're definitely not city streets, which is really bad way down here at the bottom. So overall, we're pretty happy with that. My team, our staff, our goal is really to slide this blue line further into the percentage and be up here in the very good in the 40, 45 range. So, but overall, pretty good compared to most city services and what the Parks and Rec department is doing from the citizens' point of view. All city service surveyed received higher positive results in both the national and regional averages, which is good. 76% of residents thought that the quality of city parks was very good or good, and 80% of residents thought overall quality of public golf courses was very good or good. So we're doing pretty good in the citizen survey realm. This chart delves into a comparison through the ETC Institute. It compares our department to other comparable Midwest parks departments, and we're the blue line. So in all these different categories, we're exceeding the Midwest average, which is good. So always room for improvement, but that tells us at least on a regional level, our department is exceeding or at least holding its own with our services and what we're providing. So next up, okay, I'm going to pause there and see if you have any questions about, so that's sort of the operating snapshot and some of the citizen survey stuff. Any questions about operating?
Are all those online? All those pages that you just
Yep.
showed us?
Yep.
All those? Okay.
Yeah, and this whole slideshow will be emailed out as part of the minutes.
Okay. Thank you.
So yeah, you'll get all that directly. So
My question is about swimming pools.
Uh-huh.
Are they revenue facilities or are they recreation facilities?
they're recreation. So our pools
Recreation.
are not enterprise funds. It's rare that you would ever see outdoor pools operate that way because of the seasonal nature. And generally, when a community looks at whether or not how something is funded, you look at benefit community wide, and generally swimming is a life skill. It's something that all the community can enjoy. Not to say golf isn't, but golf is very individualized sport, and that's why you typically see golf courses operated as an enterprise and not subsidized. But our pools are definitely subsidized. If we can break even on a 5-year average, that's great for outdoor pools. And we only have the 3 outdoor pools. We don't have any indoor facilities. So
Okay, thank you.
The little blue line that goes across there, the one you had before, where
this one,
the one before that. Yeah, where are we at? What's the percentage? Is that a percentage?
yep.
What's our percentage in the blue?
So we are 25% very good, 53% good, 19% rated us as fair, and 3% poor.
So how do they come up with those percentages? How do they evaluate what your work
this was-
is, or
Yeah, so this was part of the citizen survey that the citizen,
so there it's an opinion?
right. So those people who received the services were asked to rate Parks and Recreation services on a scale of good, very good, and of the respondents, 25% said we're very good, 53% good.
I'd think our blue line should be further than that. I'll be honest with you. I'm not saying that because I'm here. I'm just saying that your department does an excellent job, and that should be more than 25%. And my next question is that if that's the case, what are our goals to make that blue line go to the right?
The key to that will be when we go through our master planning process, because unfortunately this survey is pretty broad in terms of just general city services, right? It doesn't really delve really deeply into specifics of how we operate. So to be able to pull out metrics and things to be able to swing that curve just from this survey is hard. When we do a citizen needs assessment survey as part of our master planning process that's specific to our department and our services, we'll get some better data.
So you can individualize where the area is. Then.
Right.
Okay.
So that will give us more telling, more specific information as to what areas really are dragging this number down.
Okay. Okay, good.
Yeah. Any other operating questions? Okay. So then CIP, or capital improvement program, this is the other component of our budget planning process. Typically, a capital improvement project is anything that has a cost of more than $5,000 with at least a 5-year useful life. Sources are generally funding is generally through general obligation bonds for us, or debt service. We do get some projects funded through local sales tax. All those other funding sources are different ways that the city in general funds capital improvements, road use tax, enterprise fund revenues. Years ago, when golf was great and exceeded revenues or exceeded expenditures, we had a golf fund in the enterprise that would then be used as capital. Now, because of our golf operations and the way the sport is in general, basically covering its costs, not exceeding, that fund has not been implemented for several years. So those are the different sources. Here is looking at FY20. Again, we're in the planning process for 21, so I don't have a lot of 21 data at this point. But this FY20, you could see we're the green one. Parks and Recreation, we had about $1.3 million in projects. And the whole plan, we had about $5 million in projects. Again, a lot of infrastructure needs of the city are being prioritized. City sewer, street networks, so a lot of infrastructure stuff. And again, that's been prioritized by the residents. Again, here's sort of a breakdown of just a pie chart graph of the different program areas, and Parks and Recreation, we're the green 3% sliver right there. Again, streets, sewers are the big. Facility maintenance has a larger percentage, as well as miscellaneous projects. So these were the projects that we had in FY20. Park Development Program, which you're all aware of, and we're actually going to tackle that next on the agenda. This is the general CIP that we rate and handle small to medium-sized various projects throughout the community. The ADA Access Program is typically funded every other year, so we won't see that in 21, but we see it in 20. That is just a general ADA improvement, so we utilize that to look at different parks that are not compliant with ADA and make improvements to. Swimming pool improvements, we had a $70,000 CIP to enhance some of our swimming pools. Golf course improvement program, last year we were able to successfully advocate for a golf course improvement CIP separate from what used to be funded to improve, our golf courses, and Troy's touched on some of the projects that have been coming out of that, including some renovations at the E-Mice Clubhouse, the Forward Tee program, looking at continuous cart pass, some improvements to the maintenance facility. Park shelter repair, this is an annual program. We get $50,000 to do repairs to our shelters annually. The Vanderveer pergola replacement, the pergola structurally is not in good shape, so we requested money to replace that. And then Jersey Farms Neighborhood Park, this is the new park development. A couple of you were at the second public input meeting we held last night. This is year 2 of the funding. There's actually funding in FY19 that kicked off the project. That was $300,000. So $500,000 total for that park development. What you're likely to see through early discussions through the CIP project, again, a lot of the funding is going towards streets and infrastructure in the community. This year, park development program, I think, will be prioritized. I think the golf improvement will continue. Other than that, I don't know if we'll get any additional CIP money the next fiscal year. So again, we're going through that process now. Council has their budget workshop meetings in January when they get to review all this and comment. And those, of course, are public meetings, and anybody's welcome to attend those. So any questions about CIP?
I do. I have a very specific question about the pergola.
Yeah.
When will it be replaced, and will it be similar in design to what's there now, or is that to be determined? And
yeah.
will the holiday lights continue? on the new pergola?
Holiday lights will continue.
Okay.
We are actually going through design process now, and there may be, what we're finding is we're looking at actually a less expensive option to save the existing pergola, and just structurally support it underneath.
Is the issue with
Really, the issue is the ground and the block or the pavement it sits on. Correct, right?
Oh, okay.
So we're looking if maybe, because then maybe we can divert some of that funding to other projects and not have to spend $100,000 to replace the pergola. And in general, the pergola it's as is well received and historic. And
I got married under
Right.
it, so I have a special interest.
so yeah, so we're in that process now. Hopefully, we'll have some engineering opinions here soon, and which will direct which way we go. So.
Thank you.
If you guys want, anytime we can get into deep. I mean, we have a short sort of window with this on a monthly basis, but if you ever have any deeper questions about budget or operations, my office is always open. Schedule a time we can sit together over coffee and go through numbers. So.
I'm wondering if a few meetings ago we had mentioned something about filling a position, or a couple of positions were kind of waiting to be filled or something like that, but essentially the pay wasn't kind of matching, I guess, maybe. I think that was maybe a concern, is that the pay wasn't quite competitive enough.
Sure.
And so I'm wondering if there's anything as far as like operational budget goes to kind of maybe increase wages in any way, kind of keep up with that cost of living.
Yeah, so in general, we see that cost of living increase, right? That 3%. We are actually working with HR currently and going through a pay banding process, looking at comparables across all our part-time and temporary positions. So we've actually completed that portion. It's now within the finance department to see the impact. So through that process, we looked at our wages, compared them to like positions across the region, adjusted where we felt they needed to be more competitive, because one of our biggest challenges is in attracting employees and retaining employees has probably been our rate of pay. And with Illinois increasing their minimum wage, that's going to have some competitive, probably impacts on us, I guess. So we're working through that budgets, but at the end of the day, finance will have to look how that impacts our budget, if it increases, and then it's a prioritization game. But we're looking at the rates of pay.
Any other questions on the CIP projects? Seeing none, we'll move along.
All right. I'm going to stay up here briefly because now we're going to roll into park development, right? So those of you who have been with the commission or the advisory board for a while have done this process and have been through this. For those of you who are new, the park development program is this annual CIP funded at $350,000. Generally, it helps fund projects, medium to small projects. So what we're presenting today is a list of projects that have been submitted either through staff or through public input or been identified in numerous ways. We're going to issue a scoring sheet. I don't think we have that. We do have that today. Okay, it is in there. So we ask you guys, after looking at the projects, we're going to go through and sort of describe them, tell you what they're all about, answer any questions you may have, and then you guys will rate them based on your priorities. Council will also go through the same practice. They'll get this and they'll rate projects too. Then we'll come back taking council's preferences as well as your preferences, and we'll prioritize a slate, so to speak, that fits within that $350,000 budget allocation, and we'll bring that to you guys at the February meeting for approval. And then from there, it goes on to the council agenda for their approval, and then it gets funded. So with that, we'll sort of review FY19 and 20. Here's a list of different projects that have been funded through this program. Last year, prior to last year, though, remember the program was only at $250,000. Last year it was increased to $350,000. Here's the list of current or proposed projects for this year. So total requests is $872,000. Obviously, that's well over what we have available in the fund. But we will go through each project and answer questions you may have. Starting with the outdoor movie package. So this is a replacement. We currently have a system when we do outdoor movies in the park that generally takes 6 to 8 people to set up, as well as our special events trailer. It's not real efficient. So when myself and Betsy and Teresa were at the National Parks and Rec Conference in Baltimore, we stumbled upon this system that is an inflatable 21-foot inflatable soft screen. The setup for this will be about 2 people and no special events trailer, so there's definitely some efficiencies to be had. It's an all-inclusive package, including the projector and sound package. The second item on this slide is a small greenhouse for Fedgeberry Learning Center. So this would help us do some additional programming and nature-based activities, raise plants and stuff on site. And we can expand some programming at the Learning Center. Selfie stations, this is sort of a fun and different one. Everybody, I'm going to give credit to Jessica on this one. This is one she stumbled upon and her worldly adventures, but we could actually probably, with this funding, manufacture or make most of these in-house. But essentially, they're a way to promote a park, and especially with several of our more scenic parks that are heavily used for photo opportunities. We thought it might be an interesting or different sort of feature to add to some of our existing parks. Junior Theater Building and Annie Mitwire parking. Junior Theater Building, as you recall from our park tour, this is the main building project, right, that we're looking to renovate to sort of accommodate some of our expanding dance and tumbling programs. So the total project estimation is actually $250,000. And we had put it in as a standalone CIP separately. It did not make the cut from that standpoint. So what we're hoping is if you guys were to prioritize it, the $125,000 from Park Development would be matched with $100,000 fundraising through Junior Theater Inc., which is what they think, because they were able to raise about that dollar amount when they did the seat replacement and the theater renovations. So this one sort of has that caveat with it. If we can, then we'd be around that $250,000 area we need to make those renovations happen. The other one is Annie Whitmire parking lot. This is just a patch and overlay. It's starting to show wear. I'm going to turn it over from here to Betsy to cover some of the ops ones, and then Troy's going to come up and cover golf, and then we'll circle back and answer specific questions you might have. The battery case is full.
So, as you know, Duck Creek Lodge is one of our highly used rental facilities. Lots of graduation parties, Rehearsal dinners, even wedding receptions are held there. So this would just kind of give it a facelift. Updates would include the following that are listed there. So new thermostats at Roosevelt. Roosevelt has a very old boiler system, and it's a classic case where somebody gets cold, so they crank the thermostat. Well, then all of a sudden it's 110 in there, and then they open the windows. It tends to be a very vicious cycle. So these electric thermostats would help regulate the heat throughout the rooms. The family changing rooms at the aquatic facilities. When our aquatic facilities were built, the norm was just a male and female changing room. And it's always been a challenge if you come in with your 5-year-old son and aren't real comfortable with them going by themselves through the guys' locker room. So this would allow a family, two family changing areas at both facilities. So shade is also a very good thing at pools. While we love to be out in the sun, we've learned that the sun isn't always good to us. So to provide some additional shade, structures at Annie Witt would be beneficial there. And then to enhance our programming with our new Miracle Field, and with the addition, as Sherry said, that she is getting involved with our Special Olympics program in Scott County, these would be a couple of elements that would really make Prairie Heights a go-to place for people with disabilities. So there is currently a field up there that we have been getting free dirt from projects that are going along throughout the city, and they're always looking for dumping places, and we had them put a bunch up there. We would need to just level that off and then install a track around there. And then additionally, we have a traditional playground right there by field number 1 to add some sensory elements. Since again, it's literally right across the parking lot from our Miracle Field, that would be an enhancement to that park. Typically, the Park Development Fund has funded a playground for us, which has been very beneficial. We were years and years behind on replacing playgrounds. So on the left, you will see 3 potential locations. We are not asking for 3 playground replacements, but just know that age-wise, those are the 3 oldest in the system right now. Tyler, which is in the middle there, is probably the most challenged right now. So we would talk about that if you decide to rank that highly. And then the second playground there is Centennial Park. As you know, that one took a beating this year with it being underwater for a very, very long time. It's a highly used playground in a highly used area, so it's a big ticket item just because of its location and how we would do the surfacing. And then finally, we'll call it new, if you recall, Northwest Park received a new playground back in 2017. This would be an enhancement to that. The current playground was a 5 to 12 year old unit, and the addition, which would be approximately $30,000, would be targeted to the 2 to 5 year olds. And then the last thing, before I turn it over to Troy, is hillside renovation. We left this one pretty generic because, as you know, last month you talked about a subcommittee to address 3 different parks that have hill challenges there. So Prospect, Riverview, and Lindsay. So if you awarded this, ranked this highly, we would use money to establish part of what the subcommittee and the neighborhoods want in those areas.
All right, continuing on. At the River's Edge, we operate a indoor range that opened yesterday for the winter time during the time that you can't play or practice golf at the outdoor golf courses. We've been and it's had some pretty good success with a lot of patronism and a lot of people coming through there. They really enjoy having the indoor space to play and to just kind of congregate and talk about golf and things like that. And it used up completely dead programming time that was not in use until 3 or 4 o'clock when the youth starts coming in for soccer. So this item on the list is a expansion of that to right now we hit across the field the short way, and we kind of looked at the building and said we could renovate it and go across the long way and have a more expansive tee, and it would require a different cable system, the same cable that's on there now, but it would have to be redone to go across the width of it. So that's what that one's about, and add more tee lines. It would probably triple the tee line that's down there now. Also on that same page, is an additional storage at Red Hawk Maintenance Building. The reason we picked that building is because it's already on flat ground and it's centrally located between our 2 golf courses for additional equipment. We have, if you go around our golf courses, you see we use trees now to park a lot of our equipment under, because of our maintenance buildings are pretty small, and we're making do. We do the best we can with the space we have, but we look at adding a little bit of a dry storage space to that facility there because it's already flat graded and close to the street. Next page. Oh, I gotta click this thing. I didn't get a lesson, so I'm gonna try. All right. Duck Creek, a path between Duck Creek Lodge and the golf clubhouse. This came up last year. I explained it last year. It didn't make the list, but it did fairly well. It's mostly it's a thoroughfare for events to use the lodge and use the golf course and just walk in between, rather than every time we have a golf outing that wants to do the lodge, they have to move their cars. That's a problem that's a problem for an event coordinator. You want everything as easy as you can be. If we did a path, we could use the path to shuttle people, pick them up at the lodge and shuttle them back to the golf course and shuttle them back to where their car's at the lodge or wherever they need to go. Weddings could use that path to walk to the golf course for pictures. I envision it as a really nice path through the woods of Duck Creek. Kind of a combination of the woods and the open space in between there. Also, asphalt parking lot at Duck Creek at the golf course. If anybody has ever been to the maintenance shop, it's across the street from Schnucks, and it's all on a very big hillside. And every time it rains, we spend 2 hours pulling all the rock back up to the top because it all goes down to Kimberly Road. So we have trouble parking when after a big rainstorm and coming in like that. So it's just an area that's just needs a little bit of development and a little bit of work on the maintenance. Okay, got a couple items on here, a couple equipment items. Equipment doesn't always make the CIP list, but a turf seeder is something that adds quality to every park space and golf course that we have. And they make the technology that they put in them is very efficient and very efficient for successful seeding and very efficient in time. We have a couple seeders that we share with parks now that work really well. I'm just looking at requesting an upgrade into a specific size one for a lot of equipment areas that we try to get into. That is just the right size for different applications. Also on there's a water trailer. We currently tie up pickups or even a dump truck to haul the tanks safely around to water plants and turf and seedings that we do around town. The water trailer would just make it easier to disconnect and use that truck for something else. In other words, the equipment that we have is dedicated to it, and we can't use it for anything else once it's set up for water. And the trailer would make it much more versatile and much more easier for me and parks and golf to trade off and use it wherever we need to in town. To water. Okay, and then there's a golf restroom two of them, two buildings, one at Emice and one at Duck Creek. They're out in the middle of the golf course. They're just simple stone brick buildings that serve a wonderful purpose. They're plumbed in, and they have sewer, so they're all set for that. But the insides of them are starting to get where they're ready for a remodel. We've just been painting. You know, it's easy to paint brick and paint the wood, but there's a product out we're using at Emice restrooms in the clubhouse right now called the Miracle Method, and we're looking at possibly spreading that into those facilities as well. That would eliminate a lot of maintenance and make it very easy for us to clean. They are cleaned often, and they need a lot of cleaning, so anything that makes that more efficient is going to help us. Plus, your customer experience going in and out of the restrooms is always a plus. Okay, so that's all I have on my golf list.
Tegan, I see your light's on.
Yeah, I have a few questions. First question was about the outdoor movie package. How many uses per year do you anticipate, and what is the lifespan of that kind of equipment?
Currently, we do three movies. All at Vanderveer, correct? Yep. We would anticipate probably expanding that with an easier setup. I mean, we could, if we really wanted to, expand to weekends all summer long, just for efficiency purposes. I will have to check on the life cycle. I'm not entirely sure we have that information, but we can check with the vendor. I would guesstimate the speaker components, the hardware components, that probably has a 10-15 year life cycle. The inflatable screen probably has some concern just because it's inflatable.
Yeah, I was
so
wondering
let me-
if what
let me
it's
get
made
some
of
more
and if
information and get that.
yeah,
out
like
to you on that.
patchability. If that's a word. My other question was about the thermostats. Have we considered, like, does Mid-American
Rebates.
rebates or like programs? We just outfitted our house with a bunch of free stuff from them, so yeah.
Yes, we have.
Okay. And for the playground at Centennial Park,
Yep.
at what flood stage does that become impacted? And would the new plan maybe elevate it by a few feet to protect it?
So the seawall we lose at 18 about. Let me find it. The other thing about this one, it's priced to replace as is. In the state. So if this is a very themed playground, right? It's the Steamboat one with the port and play rubber surface. We've had numerous part repairs over the past several years. It's one of actually the older ones in our system outside of the Tyler, North Gaiman, and Monroe. So that is pricing it to replace as is with another Steamboat feature themed with the port and play. We could certainly, if that, I mean, for park development, that price tag takes almost the bulk of the fun if we were to prioritize that. We could look at redesign and do some inputting and some neighborhood type stuff. But that would also, yes, we would raise it and on a reinstall to try to bring it up higher out of the floodplain if possible, as much as we can.
That's all my questions.
Thank you. Mike, did you have something?
I've shared my question. What I wanted was Centennial Park, had they looked at moving it out of harm's way, because they're already predicting we're in for the same thing this coming spring as we were last year.
And that's really the issue. The primary issue, besides the age and replacement of pieces and the customization, is if you go down there and look at the surfacing, the port and play is just falling apart. The binding, everything, there's big holes, and that's from being inundated with floodwater. It's not recommended that if we were to reinstall this, we would likely maybe not do port and play, just because knowing it may flood. We've talked to like Surface American, a couple of the vendors that do this, and their product. We wanted to know if they had a product that was meant to be used in a water application or a flooding scenario, and they don't. So they actually highly recommend not using that type of surfacing in a floodplain area. So it would be more economical to do just wood mulch, 5-bar, and if that floods and floats away, it's a matter of spraying it down and adding some more, and it's a much more cost-effective means. But the poured in play is very nice and lends to the theme of the playground. But so we have also put in FEMA money request on this playground. I don't know if we'll get it. A lot of times they don't fund stuff like that, but we did identify it as something that was impacted in this last fund with FEMA.
Does it have to stay right there, or could it go across the street where that hill, that play area is, and raised up?
Where the splash pad is.
That's just an idea. I mean, I know it's really, really popular
No,
whenever you go
certainly
by.
You could look at. I mean, it's probably been a while since Centennial was master planned, and it's a conversation, I think, as the community looks at flood mitigation and different options. That's definitely worth looking at, whether or not those active features are so close, or if they're. But remember, most of Centennial floods all the way. I mean, unless you get it really elevated.
Thanks. I do love the outdoor movie package, but my question is about the greenhouse at Feshbury Learning Center. Is there an organizing board that is in control of that? Because that's going to need ongoing maintenance, because even a $4,000 greenhouse in 2 years or 3 years is going to need more.
Yeah. Our HORT team oversees our greenhouses. So the lead instructor or staff member for the Fedge Learning Center has a HORT background. So, I mean, operationally, we'll oversee it. There's no...
So they'll work it into their ongoing budget once they have the structure in
Once we have the
place?
structure, any maintenance or replacement will be worked into operating.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
I just had a couple question for Troy on that path in Duck Creek. Will that be what, asphalt, concrete? What do you think? Any ideas?
Asphalt, right? Yeah, like an asphalt.
Well, will it be for? Will people drive golf carts? Maybe. I'm just asking. Will they? You think there'd be a time they'd use the golf cart to go back and forth, or?
Yeah, we want to make it available for carts too, for shuttling people, like I mentioned about, like, if we have a pickup system, picking you up at the lodge because you have an outing there later that day.
You're not thinking about like vehicles like cars or pickups, though, are you? I don't know. Okay.
The intent is really to connect the clubhouse and the lodge, so
Yeah.
we can do more
Events.
more efficiently.
Yeah.
Basically, is the way to look at it.
And some people may be wondering about the playground replacement. I believe Jessica sent out the report, didn't you, earlier this year on
The age.
it listed all the parks. If anybody's curious, you could always ask her. It listed each park and when their playground equipment was last installed or replaced. So if you have a question on that, I know we got it. Thank you. Adriana?
Back to the Duck Creek asphalt. I don't know that particular area that you were talking about, maybe the erosion. I just saw erosion and asphalt on the same slide, and I was concerned about that.
Oh, okay, yeah, because they're not in the same area. They're in the same area of town, but the one path is a path, like, I mean, there might be a permeable surface that works for that path. On
The erosion on the maintenance building
Yes.
area.
And
Yeah.
And that's where we're on that hill slope that has just we just have a gravel base maintenance area, and the rocks move when it rains hard.
Two separate areas, two separate projects.
Okay. I would just want to be cautious, not to get the asphalt too inundated or like I don't know. I've seen asphalt kind of chip,
Sure.
from
And,
water pressure.
the connection path, we could look at an aggregate too. It doesn't necessarily have to be asphalt.
Would you like to wrap up?
I just wanted to
the
go through the
voting?
score sheet because we have several new members, just so you understand how to. And there's instructions in your packet, but so each item we want you to review, look at the cost, and then prioritize it high, medium, and low. So each project has to be circled high, medium, or low, right? And that generates a point sort of system that we tabulate. And then on top of that, we request that each of you look at your top 5 projects and rank those 1 to 5, 1 being the highest, 5 being the lowest. And those projects sort of get bonus points into the tabulation of everything as well. So every project, high, medium, or low, please, and then give us your top 5, 1 through 5, based on how you feel it would impact the park system or the greatest need to the parks or your personal preference in life. So, and then if we could please have those back either to Jessica via email or drop them off at River's Edge by January 14th, that would be great. Or you can bring them. We have an advisory meeting. Our meeting is pushed to the 14th. You can bring it to that meeting. And then our goal is to have that slate, everything tabulated for you guys to review at the February meeting and approve from there. And if you have questions, things come up as you're reviewing these, or you have, I wish I would ask this, please don't hesitate to email, call, ask me or any one of the seniors. They'd be happy to discuss with you guys. So, any other questions?
I don't see any lit. While you're there, since we're running
I'll
close
do
on
my
time,
director's report.
Yeah, why don't you just go right into
I
that?
got only a couple things because I've been spending too much time talking. Jersey Farms, I mentioned that park development is ongoing. We had our second public input meeting last night. There was 3 preliminary concepts from the design team shared with the neighborhood. From there, they will take comments and feedback from last night, and they'll blend those into one final master plan for the park. Confluence, the design team leading this, will be at your January 14th meeting to present that concept. Likely there will be additional, or there may be some of the neighborhood will attend to offer any additional comments too. And then from there, we will go into construction documents, which is the next to get phase 1 under development, with the goal to get it bid and start construction sometime late spring, early summer. So, just a couple other things. Holiday lights, we're knee deep in that right now. Events going on. The February light display opened on the 30th, and we had the viewing that I know some of you got out to on that rainy night. So that's running nightly, 7 days a week from 5:30 to 9:30. Shows on the half hour from now until the 4th. Vanderveer lights also went on at the same time, so those will run as well through the 4th. They don't blink or move or anything, but very beautiful nonetheless, and the Hort team did a great job. Parks team and some rec team members got out and helped get the Vanderveer lights set up this year as well. Holiday Train is the annual holiday train comes to Davenport this year. It'll be here on the 7th at 9:15 at the Freight House, so come check that out. And then lastly, just to mention the conservatory theme, the Yuletide Ball, the Harry Potter theme is up and going at the conservatory at Vanderveer, and it'll be up until January 4th as well. So January 4th rolls around and we all yell bah humbug and we take down all the lights and we get ready for spring. So that's my update. And then everything else, staff has written reports unless you have direct questions. I know there's some advisory time stuff we got to cover, so. Thank you. Wendy.
Yes, I just have one question about under revenue facilities, the Tykes on Turf. Just a brief, how is that? Is it totally drop-in, or how is it being supervised? Yeah. Yeah. I would like it, and planned activities, what's happening?
It's generally just a bunch of, age-appropriate equipment, and we have a staff member, Tori, who does a lot of the Learn to Skate programming. So it was her idea initially. So it's 10 to noon Mondays, and she just goes out there, kind of helps out, and kind of plays with the kids. So it's not really structured. It's just kind of throw the stuff out there and let them play.
And parents are encouraged to play too?
Yeah, absolutely.
Good.
And it's just $5 for the kid.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
The communication protocol. We would like to add this into our bylaws so we can either discuss it now or we could table it until January's meeting, give you all a chance to look at it. And the other addition that is left out of this statement that you received is with one addition here. Board members should contact Ryan Merritt to confirm details and to coordinate with the department before commenting as a board member on public or social media. That would be one last detail on the protocol. And Jessica can add that and email you a new copy, or we can vote on it today. I'll just looking for discussion on this.
I think I would like to see it revised all the way through how we would want it before we decided to vote on something that's going to go into our bylaws.
Okay.
I would support that comment.
Tegan?
I would agree. So.
Okay, well, Jessica has already been informed, and so she will add that other clause in there. Jessica will add that other clause in there and then email it to you, and so we will table this until our January meeting. And do we need a motion? Not to table it. I don't see anyone arguing about that table. The next thing is our on the advisory time is a review of our subcommittees. I am going to start the Credit Island subcommittee with Jerry, Mike, and Tegan. And I have heard from Credit Island, and they have 3 people that want to join us. And I have not heard back from the Riverfront Commission. They say they're going to get back to me. Well, we'll wait for them. My plan is to email my goals and everything and a list of members to all the members before Christmas, but delay any work or any meetings until January. I think December's a pretty busy time. So anyone on that committee, you will get an email from me in a short period. I believe Wendy has something to say.
No, I'll push the button. I agreed to facilitate the first subcommittee meeting of the Prospect Park group. And so again, I have currently 3 board members interested: Steve Duffy, Adriana McBride, and Michelle Bailey. And in addition to that, a Prospect Park, Judy Belfer and Diane Franken have come forward. So we've got a group that will also plan to email and set a meeting time after the first of the year, like the first week of January receiving meeting. The only other thing that I want to say is in regard to there are several areas that have hillside issues, but I want to tell you that this subcommittee is charged with making a recommendation to the advisory board for a course of action regarding the conservation, maintenance, and aesthetic issues purposely for Prospect Park. And so that will be the initial charge. The goal would be to complete a report, present it to the board, and upon recommendation, if it is agreed upon, forward it to our director for action. So that's kind of what we're about, but we will start with a January plan.
Thank you. Adriana?
For both of those subcommittees, I don't know if those are open to recommending others. But if so, I would, one, like to recommend Brittany Ackerland, who is the city's natural resource technician with Public Works. She might be someone, since she is a natural resource technician with Public Works for the city of Davenport, somebody whose opinion I think we should take into high regard in terms of that particular hillside and future hillsides that we might consider. So Brittany, I would recommend for the Prospect Park subcommittee. I don't know if she's got time for that also, so, but just for someone who, like an insider yet outsiders, and an expert's opinion. So that's for Brittany, and then Credit Island. I'm wondering if we are also going to focus on kind of the natural landscape there, or if we're just kind of focusing on, say, the lodge and, you know, biking. Yeah, because there's I have a mentor, a local botanist, Bob Bryant. He's taken inventories of plant inventories of valuable plants in our parks throughout the Quad Cities, and Credit Island has some special areas. He's done extensive plant inventories, surveys there. So he might be a good one to kind of have in our back pocket on that subcommittee, on the Credit Island subcommittee, in terms of, you know, knowing what not to put where, you know, like essentially not to put a bike path on, say, this cluster of pink turtlehead valuable plants. So those would be my two recommendations for the two respective boards.
As far as Credit Island goes, our plan is just to look at what we're going to do, how much we're going to, would not into specifics particularly, but, you know, what are we going to do? Since it floods so often, are we, you know, I just don't want to get tied up in specifics on Credit Island yet. We just have to decide, are we even going to replace things like the ball fields and the light poles and things like that. We just, you know, as far as the plants and stuff, that can come down the road a little later.
It's also history too.
Well, yeah.
And so, what you're saying.
I would like to join the Prospect Park committee if there is an available spot, please.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
There is one additional spot, actually. Okay,
Great.
we'll do that.
All right, thank you. Please add me to your list. Thanks.
On the Duck Creek, or not Duck Creek, but Credit Island, I'm not sure if we're still talking to Corps of Engineers about any of that in the backwater. I mean, there's a lot to that. I mean, other than trying to keep it as clean and neat as possible, we can get a group of people to kind of get an idea of what the overall view of what we would like to see down there. But in order to make any decisions on what to do outside of maintenance, that kind of comes down to what we can do as far as the Corps of Engineers. Am I correct? Yes.
Are you asking me?
I'm asking you, Chad.
I figured you're looking at me. I believe conversations continue. That's been handled through the Riverfront Improvement Commission, but I believe they are still in conversation with the Corps regarding the slough project. But I can get more information and get back to you guys for the committee.
Well, one of the things I wanted the committee to look at is if that bridge idea goes through, how's that going to impact the island's usage? You know, right now the island, the road goes under at like 16 foot on the Lock 15s. Yeah. So if the bridge goes through, will we get more usage on the island? Will the island be open more? That we don't know that yet, but that's something I want the committee to think about. Does that make sense, Jerry?
Yeah, it does. Only we don't know what's going to happen next spring.
No.
You know, I mean, what do you know? I mean, it's a shoot in the air, and
Yeah.
you know, you just don't know.
Yeah.
But my biggest concern about that down there is that, I mean, there's a lot of things. I could think of all kinds of things to do to that park down there. I mean, I could. But what's going to happen is that you're going to spend all this money down there and then find out that it's just going to get destroyed again.
Well,
And that's what my concern is. So my big concern, more of anything else, is that until we find what the main structure is going to have to help us down there, is to keep it as clean as possible. I mean, we could put docks down there so you could canoe into that lake inside the park. I mean, there's all kinds of things you could put over on the slough side of the Credit Island. You could put a dock over there where people could go down there and dock their boats down off of Credit Island. There's all kinds of things to do down there. But I think the main thing what we need to do is make sure it looks nice. So when we drive down through there, even after we have the bridge that would possibly get, if we were lucky to ever get that, would be to be able to bike path down through there and do those kind of things. And yeah, there's going to be some park areas, but we're going to have to lift all of that park areas for the playgrounds and so forth. You'd have to lift that, wouldn't you?
That's kind of what I want people.
So that's what we really need to sit and talk to everyone about. Okay.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Michael, second. All in favor? Aye. Seems